appealed to him. All right, now how do you tell an exciting story? I won't be able to get very far into this, but I just have to at least throw this out. Anybody recognize this guy? Which, there you go, right? Good. All right, so I'm curious. Who saw the original Star Wars back in 1977? And who remembers seeing it? Like, was it very memorable?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was like 4 or 5 years old back then, but I saw it in the theaters and I was blown away. This was the wildest thing I'd ever seen. And anyway, did you know that Star Wars was the first movie to be based totally based on purpose on a certain pattern? A pattern that starts off in the ordinary world. Things are normal, things are kind of boring. Here you have the average Joe. At some point he gets a call to adventure. And then he also refuses the call to adventure. No, I'm not special enough. I don't have the right tools. Not me. I can't do it. But then he meets with a mentor. Think Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And then he crosses the threshold from the ordinary world into the special world, the higher world, the magical world, the world of the Force or whatever, something special. Now he gets some initial tests. He meets some allies. He meets some enemies. He's growing, or she's growing. Then there's an approach into the inmost cave. I'm not quite sure what that means, but things are getting deeper. There's an ordeal. There's a reward. King Arthur takes the sword out of the stone, sort of thing. He gets, maybe Luke starts to get good with the lightsaber or whatever, and he makes the road back. There's some sort of death and resurrection in the story, which of course Luke Skywalker goes through something like that. And he returns with the elixir. All right, so he's sort of the savior. He's got something to offer the real world because he's been to the magical world and he's come back. All right, here's another way to illustrate the same thing. You can kind of see the same thing. It's kind of you get deeper. It takes our emotions on a roller coaster. And so that's why when we see some of these movies like Star Wars, we go through that roller coaster. We're excited. We've been taken on a ride. So it's not just Star Wars. I got about 4 minutes. So it's not just Star Wars. It's also The Matrix. Oh, by the way, there's a 4th Matrix that's supposed to come out in a year or two. The Lion King, 1994, also came out again this year. It's also based on that same template. The Lord of the Rings, every single Lord of the Rings installment is based on that same template. Not necessarily every single point of the template, but hey, if you got a winning story, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This is it's good stuff. Aladdin, which also came out again this year on film, same thing, same template. Harry Potter, same template. Oh brother, where art thou? Based on the Odyssey, I believe.
Yeah.
And of course, the template is partly based on the Odyssey as well. Wizard of Oz has a little bit of it. Avatar, greatest selling movie of all time. Finding Nemo, Tale of Despero, The Hunger Games, Indiana Jones, Shrek, Dune, Men in Black, Avengers, etc. They know they got a good thing, and they're getting a lot of money from us because they know how to tell the story. And this is an exciting story. Now, 3 minutes. All right. So this template was more than anyone was based on Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces. I'm not recommending this book. I'm recommending we know about it because it's so influential. Has anyone heard of this book, Joseph Campbell? Well, that's probably a good thing. Because Joseph Campbell, he grew up Christian, I think, but he stopped being a Christian and kind of became more of a Hindu/Buddhist/Gnostic. But as you can see, you can kind of make out this face here. Does that kind of look like the face of the artist's perception of Jesus? But his point is, there's all sorts of heroes in the world in the ancient past. Millions of heroes, 1,000 faces. And Jesus is just one of those heroes. So as I'm talking about stories, some people just love telling stories, and they'll say, it doesn't matter if the story is true or if it's false, it just matters if it's a good story. All right, so this leads me to the quadlemma. think in terms of, a dilemma is a choice, problem between two things. Quadlemma is a choice between four things. When it comes to the question of who is Jesus of Nazareth, this Joseph Campbell guy, and a lot of our movies today might say, okay, well, Jesus is just one of the 1,000 heroes. He's special, but, not really any more special than anyone else. So this kind of leads me to the quadlemma. Who was Jesus? You got four choices. Either he was a lunatic who was just saying these amazing things that weren't true, but he didn't really know that they weren't true. He actually thought that about himself, that I came from the Father, and all judgment has been entrusted unto me. These just audacious things that he's saying. The other one is, well, maybe he's a liar. Maybe he was saying something that wasn't true about himself, and he knew it. But none of us really think in those terms. You read about Jesus, and he's like, okay, well, he's not a lunatic, I think. And then you're like, he's definitely not a liar. That just doesn't fit his character. All right, so here's the third choice is he's a legend. Now, this is where the action is really at. Most of the critics of Christianity do one degree or another. In one way or another, they're going to say, oh, yeah, well, he's legendary. Maybe there's this historical core, but then, his followers later, they invented stories. Jesus never claimed to be God. That was, his followers later just added that to make the story more interesting. Something like that. There's all varieties of legend or myth. So lunatic, liar, legend, or fourth choice, the Lord. And I think this needs to govern the way we tell our stories and the way that we know other people are trying to tell the counterpoint stories. We need to be able to defend it from being a legend and say, well, for instance, that the bullseye, that's a great way of doing it. There are many ways to do it, but listen, you think Jesus is a legend? All these things were prophesied anywhere from 1,500 to 600 years before he even showed up on the earth. And this can't be a coincidence, So that's one way to do that. All right, with that, I'm going to stop. Any questions or comments or